board. Planning board meetings are broadcast live and digitally recorded. This meeting is being held both in person and virtually through Teams pursuant to Section 20 of the Acts of 2021, allowing public meetings to be conducted remotely so that board and committee members, as well as members of the public, can participate remotely. The time is 6:35 p.m. Do we have anybody in the room or online that is here? Well, before we get there, recognizing we do have a quorum of the board present, we have 2 members who are appearing online, myself, Christopher Monroe, and Mr. Carpenter. Appearing in the room, we have Mr. Steiger and associate member Mr. Russell. Absent from the meeting tonight, we have Mr. Homans and Mr. D'Amalia. So continuing forward into to public comment, do we have anybody online or in the room here to comment about anything that is not on the agenda?
We have no one in here in the room, Mr. Chair.
Excellent. So moving forward, next on the agenda is acceptance of the previous minutes. The minutes have been made available to everybody in the board packet, and also theoretically through the drive. But as we discussed shortly before going on the record, I was unable to access the drive before the meeting, so I've not yet had an opportunity to review the minutes. So I can take a quick look at them now. Has everybody else had an opportunity to review the minutes, or should we hold that off until the next meeting?
I have reviewed and I'm fine with them.
So have I.
Excellent. So in that case, we'll handle this in our usual fashion, which is we'll take a motion and a second, and then we'll go through corrections as a friendly amendment. So would somebody like to make that motion?
I'll make the motion that we accept the planning board meeting minutes for dated August 21st, 2025. As presented.
Thank you. Hearing it first, do we have a second?
Second.
Hearing a first and a second, any discussion?
Excellent.
And I'm also just going to pause for a moment so I can just scroll through these.
There were a couple of little typos where the word "our" appeared as "out." Other than that, there wasn't really anything.
Okay. Francois, would you take a friendly amendment just to adjust those typos in the motion you made?
I do. So I am taking that friendly amendment as presented by the chair.
I guess I'm seconding it.
Excellent. And Leanne, can you, when we accept them, can you just go through and double check for those?
Yep.
Any other corrections? They look good to me. All right, so hearing none, I'm calling a vote. And because we have members who are present online, it needs to be a roll call vote. Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Steiger?
Aye.
Mr. Steiger?
Aye. Can you hear me?
And the chair is aye, the minutes are accepted. Yeah, I must not have been able to hear you for a moment there. All right, so moving forward on the agenda, we have consideration of social consumption as a marijuana use type. Dan, do you have any background on this that you want to give us?
Nope. Alec had asked me to add it to our agenda for tonight, as I guess Massachusetts as a state is considering marijuana consumption as a use type, and so he just asked us to put it on the agenda, but I don't have any other additional information.
Oops. My camera's turned off. How did that happen?
No, your camera's on, we can see you.
Oh, okay, sorry.
So,
I have something to add.
Yep, go ahead.
And is, looked into this, and the Control Commission approved a draft only of social consumption regulations. It's gonna go through a number of additional reviews, and then we'll come back to the commission sometime in the fall for reconsideration for final approval. So I don't, I think it's premature for us to do anything at this point.
I would agree with you if that is indeed.
Unless you want to anticipate something based on draft regulations. I'm not so bold.
Yeah, it's certainly fair to say that it's an issue we should be tracking. I know from a historical standpoint, one of the cannabis applicants that we have in town did present as part of their long-term plan for their original special permit process that once the regulations were finalized, they did intend upon proceeding eventually to a social use permit, and actually had presented to us some pretty significant architectural drawings and landscaping drawings for that. So it is going to be a live question for us at some point in the intermediate term future, once the regulations get finalized. So I would suggest that's something that we need to track, and that perhaps we consider just planting a flag on for Alec, because one of the items that we have for our agenda tonight is revisiting, well, it's under administrative, we'll call it under administrative matters, was revisiting and closing our goal setting session from the last meeting. So we had agreed that we would keep it open until this week, or until this meeting, to see if there was any additional feedback. I'm not aware of additional feedback coming in from some of the other members. So my inclination would be to leave it as we had agreed at the last meeting, probably with the exception that we want to request that Alec use some of his time to track this issue, because we do expect it to become something where we will get an application pretty much as soon as the law is finalized. So how does the rest of the board feel about that?
I'm okay with it personally. Thank you very much for suggesting that.
Okay. So we'll report back to Alec that yes, this is an issue that he should track and should follow. Because ultimately the question comes up is we have a limited amount of hours on what we can use Alec for, so we need to be judicious, which is why we did the goal setting exercise last week, or last meeting. So we'll report back to him on this. Does anybody else have anything else on that?
No, sir.
I'm curious what Alec's tenure is with us. What, a certain number of hours or weeks or months or?
Yeah, we have a certain number of hours per week with him. Leanne, do you remember off the top of your head how many hours per week we have for Alec? Is it 5?
I believe it is 5.
Yeah, it's 5 or somewhere around 5 that he has for projects. So he spends a couple hours of that working on projects for us. And then there's an hour or two a time that's available for office hours for our constituents, for people to come in and talk about whatever they have going on for projects. Like the folks who've been talking about potentially doing an ag accessory, or however we noun it. Like those hours that go and talking to those people count towards the number of hours he has per week. So that's why we manage it that way with the priority list. All right. So if there's no other comments on that, that has us into 5B, which is ecotourism and agricultural accessory bylaw working session. So I'm actually going to suggest that we pivot a little bit on this, because I think we have a lot more work to do, and that perhaps we form either a subcommittee or a working group on it. I guess to think more specifically on this, we could actually do an advisory committee to ALEC. And if it was an advisory committee to ALEC, who is a staff member, then it's something that can just meet and discuss and work through to come up with a more defined issue list and a more defined list of options for us to present at a meeting. Because there's a lot of work to go on this, just from knowing the history of the project, from knowing where it is, and knowing some of the points that have been raised in the past. And even in the listening session that we had for the sand pit overlay, some of the same questions came up on, well, where does the line fall? Like, why do an overlay? Why do an admin? Why not just alter the underlying uses? And I think a lot of those are fair questions. And I think it just needs a little bit more time with ALEC and perhaps an advisory group. So I would suggest that that we authorize ALEC to have an advisory group on that, and we can leave it ultimately open to him on who he wants on it. But I would suggest that at least one member and maybe a member or two from the public join that and work on it. You get to something that's a little more developed, because I think it's going to be, just for it to be a reasonable task for us, we need a couple options and we need a discrete list of questions to not just be relitigating our way through a bunch of stuff. So I propose that we proceed that way. I'm pausing to think, do we need a motion to authorize ALEC for that? I mean, we might as well. Would somebody like to make a motion to authorize ALEC to form an advisory group to himself, composed of a planning board member and a couple of constituents, for the purpose of taking additional actions on the ag accessory or ecotourism, or however they ultimately choose to noun it, bylaw, and present back options to the board. Let's just call it, well, 2 months from today, so 3 more meetings from today as a deadline on it.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Would somebody like to second that?
I'll second.
All right, any discussion? Great. Calling a vote by roll call. Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Steiger?
Aye.
And the chair is aye. Motion is made and carried. Would somebody like to be a volunteer to help out with that?
I would.
Sounds good to me. Anybody else want to throw their hat in, and then we'll do stump speeches and have a vote and such? Otherwise, I'm pretty happy with Mr. Carpenter. All right, so Mr. Carpenter, you are up. Thank you very much for that. I can say that the first time we tried to do it, it was a lot of work, and it was many hours of my life. So I'm very happy to have a fresh set of eyes taking a look at it. So happy to see it moving forward in some way in the process, even though there's still we want it.
I'll say as an aside that it's a huge, the breadth of it right at the moment is huge, as you pointed out, and maybe we can take little bites at it rather than trying to swallow the whole thing at the same time.
Yeah, I certainly agree with that, just because there's a lot of really big projects that are coming up, and we're going to be going to the public on several issues that are gonna have a really big, long-term impact on Hubbardston. And to your point, I think it'd be a lot better if we did it in smaller posts, smaller pieces, so that folks can more easily digest the issues than have like one mega meeting where we're proposing massive commercial changes or something that's really a radical change in direction. So we need to go slow and obviously listen to our constituents. All right, so moving forward on the agenda, we have old business, which is the appointment to positions. So I'm just gonna run through the list of positions that are held by planning board members. Once I find that document here. So the first one is we are supposed to be sending a member to the Affordable Housing Committee. And just for the benefit of the public, the committee works to identify community housing needs, reduce out-migration of our younger residents, and to minimize the displacement of our elderly on fixed incomes. The committee also works towards the Commonwealth's goal of designating 10% of the town's year-round housing stock to affordable housing. This committee has not met a lot lately. It was previously authorized by a select board vote on 8/15/2022. The next one on the list is the Economic Development Committee, the EDC. The EDC has historically met third Wednesday at 6:30. There's going to be a kickoff on this. The EDC is going through a visioning session and is going to be reconstituted. And I guess that's all there is to say about it because it doesn't yet have its new charter or its new mission. The next position is the Montechusett Regional Planning Commission, which is the MRPC representative. This is the one that is currently held by me. The meetings are the first Thursday of every month at 7, either online or at the MRPC office. Next is the MJTC. So the Montechusett Joint Transportation Committee is a planning advisory group established under agreements among the MRPC towns and the Mass Department of Transportation. The purpose of MJTC is to provide the mechanism for an open and broadly participatory intermodal transportation planning process with maximum involvement on the part of local communities. So that's their words. What it does is from a practical standpoint is it talks about transportation projects and talks about needs and funding. It talks about how to have those things meet each other in the middle. An example of what's come out of this is our downtown project where I believe it was Safe Streets. I'm not going to quote what the grant was, but ultimately the grant program that helped pay for that came out of an MJTC meeting. Historically, this has been a member of the planning board and also the director of the DPW. These meetings have not been attended recently, but we're likely missing opportunities by not having these be better attended. Next is the Community Preservation Committee, which meets when needed, which is normally around town meetings to discuss applications, usually meets less than 6 times per year. And then final on the list is the Capital Improvement Committee, which submits a capital plan annually to the town administrator, who reviews it and forwards it to the Board of Selectmen and Finance Committee with recommendation. So I guess in terms of things that we're missing out there, the MJTC meets the second Wednesday of the month, usually at 2:30 in the afternoon, which is a terribly inconvenient time for me. So I guess let's take this from the top. So we have more positions than we have members who are here tonight, and if we leave some open for tonight, that's okay. We can come back to that. We can solve with some of our other members, and some of these don't actually have to be planning board representatives. So I guess to keep it in terms of what we do have to fill, we have to fill the MRPC one. I'm currently the chair of the Planning Commission for MRPC, and I would like to stay on doing that, but it's ultimately the decision of this board to send me forward for it. But it's taken a long time to get myself implanted in MRPC at that level. So it would not be great for the town overall to be starting over. Is there anybody else who's interested in that role?
Knowing you and your position, it's perfectly suited. I have no interest in intervening or butting in.
I'm actually honored by the fact that you've done such a great job and that you are now the chair, so I would like to recommend that you continue doing that.
All right, so we'll call that one resolved. The next one will go with the MJTC, and I think we had actually talked about Peter doing this one previously.
I'll do it again.
Excellent. We'll have to have the select board confirm that because I don't think they did the last time. So it didn't update the roster with MJTC. We'll make sure that that happens and that you get the notices and materials for the meeting.
Thank you.
All right, so those are the two big mandatory ones, and then the next ones that we definitely have to fill are CPC and CIPC. And we had previously had some discussions about these. Actually, we decided to hold off until this meeting. So let's start with CPC. Who'd like to throw their hat in for that one?
I would, and if you allow me, I've been doing it now for the last 2 years. This will be my 3rd year. And I would like to be that person again.
Anybody else want to throw their name in?
No.
All right, so we'll put Francois on the slate for there. Then the next one is the Capital Improvement Planning Committee. Would anybody like to throw their hat in for that one?
So I've done that also in the last several years. However, I would love to give that to somebody else. It's a great job. I mean, it's a great opportunity to see what where we can spend our monies from a capital improvement perspective. It's not a very difficult. I'm just going to give you a quick recount. It's not a very difficult obligation, and more importantly, the town administrator does an excellent job in terms of preparing the material and making it ready. We do have some members of the public, our constituents, who actually participate in this here, and they've been participating in it also for the last, I think, 2-3 years continuously. So it's a good momentum that's gone there. I think a fresh pair of eyes would be very helpful.
Yeah. So just to call out what's left here, I believe we should discuss also the EDC because it's being freshly reconstituted. So really the next, the two that are really in play remaining are the CIPC and the EDC, the Economic Development Committee. So I had previously been on the Economic Development Committee for a long time. I don't think I can balance it with my commitments to MRPC. So I don't believe I can stay on with that one. So certainly both of those spots are open.
What's that commitment again, the EDC?
So the EDC was usually the 3rd Wednesday of the month for an hour, plus some research projects and periodic public appearances for it. But there's usually only 1 or 2 of the public appearances a year. And the EDC hasn't met for over a year, so it's about to be reconstituted with a new mission. But it's going to be important that it launches with somebody on the planning board from it.
Yeah, well, unless Francois has a burning desire, I would be interested. Only recognizing that I think that's our top priority as a board, is it not? to sort of dovetail what we're doing in with the economic, benefits of our actions towards the town.
Yeah, it certainly is a pretty high priority issue.
Alan, I yield to you. I think you would be an excellent candidate and a good choice for this year.
Okay, and then that has for the final one being the Affordable Housing Committee, which has not met in over a year, and I'm not sure if it will meet for the year, but it is important to have one of our names associated with it, so I believe that would go to either Peter or myself. I don't know, Peter, if you have any interest or if you have bandwidth for it.
I'll take care of it, Chris.
Excellent. So we have a full slate.
Can I just confirm
Well, we
who's
don't.
doing CIPC?
We don't
I
have
don't-
somebody, no, we don't have anybody for CIPC yet, right?
I thought we had suggested that you were going to stay on with it.
You heard something that I did not say. I basically said I thought it would be good for somebody else to take that. I would suggest very strongly that we reach out to our other two members who are not present here today and request one of them to consider becoming part of that.
Okay. Yeah, we can certainly hold on that one. I don't believe it's meeting in the near future.
It usually starts meeting at very close to the end of the year, around the November, December timeframe, and things get a little bit more hectic around the January, February timeframe.
Okay. Yeah, I'll be sure to take care of that. I'm working on meetings with our two other members, so I'll certainly broach that issue among others.
Thank you.
All right, so now we have a slate. So thank you all very much. These are, as much as some of these are ex officio, they're all really pretty meaningful things because the folks on these committees look to us as being the experts on it. Because despite the fact that we're all here because we got elected to it, it's a pretty hard, rigorous committee that we're on. So despite the fact that everybody's just another elected official, we're really looked at as being an expert. So our input on all of these committees is very valued.
Can I add a piece just for administrative purposes for these appointments?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to add an administrative piece for these appointments. I spoke to the town clerk and she had, specifically for CIPC and CPC, Francois, you appointed at the last election cycle. And Peter, you for, MJTC, and Chris, you for EDC. And since those will be changing, or some of them will be changing, I know we have a new form that we're meant to fill out as board members for resignations and appointments, so I will touch base with Mel and see how she would like us to proceed with that.
And a quick reminder,
Okay. Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I know ultimately the authority for that rides on the select board to approve it and vote. So
Yes,
whatever
that
it takes to
form
get there
goes
for it.
to the select board.
And a quick reminder, and that is once you are appointed to some of these committees, you have to be sworn in.
Yes, correct. Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. All right, so moving forward on the agenda, we have other administrative matters. So as everybody is aware, we had a public listening session. I was able to tune in electronically. Al, you were able to attend in person. Al, can you just give us a couple of your brief impressions? And I'm also going to ask that that Al had submitted a brief written report, that brief written report get added to the record for the meeting and included in the meeting file for this. Awesome. Al, do you have any brief remarks you want to say about the meeting?
First of all, yeah, my first impression is that this is a very active group of senior residents who come to the hearings like this, or workshop, I should say. And that's wonderful that they take such an interest. But it also means that the representation of the population as a whole is somewhat skewed to the older residents. And, because these types of overlay discussions have long-term implications, I think we ought to explore possible ways of communicating some of this good information that was presented at the meeting. There were a lot of good posters presented by Nietzsche and presentations they made, which if captured, I think there's a video. It might have been recorded, right, Leanne?
Yes.
Yep, it's on YouTube.
So it may be something we want to share more broadly. Anyway, that's an aside. So I think there was, first of all, a general question about, do we need an overlay raised by many of the former town officials who attended the meeting? Do we need an overlay, or should we consider a frank rezoning of the area, as commercial or whatever? The second point that was really clear was people were pretty uniform in their expectation that anything we would do would be consistent with the rural qualities of the characteristics of the town. So any businesses or commercial activities that might be associated with any of this land would be something that people would want to see fairly, I won't say a small scale, but low impact might be a better way to put it. And there was a lot of concern about the water quality. That's an aquifer that people are concerned about protecting that area, and the streams that eventually flow into some important watersheds. So that was a consideration. I guess the concern I got from most people was that it not be a high impact in terms of traffic generation, in terms of impact on soil or water quality, and that we should not include Gardner as a resource that we could tap into. We should think about the on-site treatment of whatever occurs, because the water quality by one person's experience, being a holder of condominium or apartments in Gardner, is the water quality is poor. And the others commented that the sewer capacity, the sewer treatment plant, is nearing capacity in Gardner. And so that there was a fair amount of skepticism about whether there was an opportunity for any development in Hubbardston to link into Gardner. But, that may be the static situation. Who knows whether the future may resolve some of those questions.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think those were the key points.
So thank you very much for attending, and thank you very much for the summary. I know you had opened saying that you think it's anecdotal, but I think it's potentially more than that. That the demographic of the room suggests that we probably have more work to do reaching the public. And I would agree that what you're saying is essentially how the meeting went. Everybody should take a look at that. I did want to address one thing that came up a couple times in the conversation with information that we've received as a board from our consultant, and that we've also seen come up in terms of remediation of some of these properties. So there was an assertion that that Hubbardston had dropped the ball on not forcing remediation on these properties, and that Hubbardston needed to force remediation on these properties before doing anything. There's a couple issues about that. The first one is as we've come to find out, because the benefit of hindsight being 2020, is that many of these remediation projects were done with discarded paper mill products or were done with municipal sludge. And folks doing it at the time did not know, but it turns out that those materials are loaded with PFAS, and that there are certainly issues for properties that were remediated using either of those methods, which were absolutely the methods that were proposed for remediating that property. So while there can be certainly a disagreement of opinion on whether or not Hubbardston should have forced something, we can look back on it with hindsight and say that it is a really good thing that Hubbardston did not force the remediation, and that that remediation was not done using discarded paper mill product or paper mill pulp, because we would be dealing with a pretty big PFAS problem for ourselves. So just wanted to take a moment to address that. That did come up at the meeting. Francois?
I did want to point out one of the properties that is on 68, which was a former gravel pit, which is, I believe, owned now by an owner who, I think during the last conversations that we had here on the planning board, was actually remediated using such material. My question then would be is that, and that is adjoining these properties, is that something that should be a concern that should be raised with maybe the health department or somebody else with regards to the potential contamination of not only the soil but the underlying aquifer?
It's potentially an issue for the Board of Health. It's outside of our direct jurisdiction. But yeah, potentially the Board of Health may want to look into that, but to the best of my knowledge, there hasn't been a complaint raised on it.
Oh, I doubt there's been a complaint, but I bring it up because it was a matter that we as a planning board addressed when we were looking at remediation possibilities and remediation efforts for former quarries that were no longer operational, or sand pits, or maybe even the clay pit that we had down here also in 68. So just want to remark on this here, and maybe what we can do is as a courtesy, let the folks know from the health department that such a remediation effort did take place at one point in time in our town.
Yeah, and that is certainly consistent with the testimony that we've received from the applicant that's looking for the release of the bond on the clay pit when that had come in front of us a year or two ago. So that was ultimately the source for the information on that, along with general publications from the state on PFAS contamination and municipal sludge. That's also why the material became unavailable for the purpose of doing the clay pit remediation, which was why we ended up waiving the bond on that. So it's a far more complicated, far more nuanced issue than was presented at the listening session. And I just wanted to address that on the record because it was presented by folks who were previously in town leadership. So I didn't want that hanging out there as a loose thread in the public when it's a far more nuanced issue that was brought up at that meeting.
Agreed.
So with that, I don't have anything else for the meeting tonight, other than there is another working advisory group for Nate on the sand pit project on the 9th, and it's going to be getting ready to report back to the board and the town not too far after that. So
one additional question to you,
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair. The status of the letter regarding the Oakham battery energy storage system, what's the status on that?
I made the updates. I'm waiting for a signature.
Okay, so once he gets back, he can sign it. Perfect, thank you.
Yep, it is otherwise approved.
Great.
All right, anybody else have anything not anticipated by the chair?
Well, you may have anticipated this, but I have a question which I'm not sure how to go about it, but it has to do with this rural enterprise overlay district and particularly its relationship or the impact of Mass General Law 48, Section 3, which, as you know, exempts certain activities from certain local regulations. So, you know, one of the things that I'd like to be educated on, perhaps if town council can help me better appreciate what the boundaries of this are in relation to working with Alec on the subgroup here.
Yeah, we have some previous research that we did on that I can make sure that you get your hands on. And if there's still questions out, because we're a small town, Nate directly manages our use of town council. So if after looking at that you have questions, Nate gatekeeps that, but is generally receptive to getting help whenever we need it.
Okay, very good.
So, all right, anybody have anything else? Would somebody like to make a motion?
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second?
Second?
Non-debatable, calling a vote. Mr. Steiger?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
All right, we are adjourned at 7:17. Well, thank you all for